Make this really clear. I do not want to hear from any of them again about doing our jobs. We're here. They are not. I can get every Republican in this committee here. They're not here. So when I hear about doing their jobs, which they preach about all the time, where are they to do their jobs? And there are very few jobs that are as important as this power in the Constitution to vote on the president's nominees for these cabinet positions. And there's hardly any cabinet position outside of Secretary of State, maybe, that is as important as Treasurer of the United States. And I happen to believe that the position that our fellow colleague from the House has been nominated for is absolutely critical to our country. Now, to differ, that's one thing. I can live with that. I've differed myself from time to time. But I've always shown up. I've always been willing to talk and express my viewpoint. And we've given plenty of time for them to be here and to show up and to express their viewpoints and then vote one way or the other, knowing that they're all going to vote no. Well, which is ridiculous in and of itself, but I won't criticize that. They have a right to do it. But my gosh, to not be here and participate, that's a total abnegation of their duties as senators. And I think it's pathetic. Senator from Georgia.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership, and thank you for the role model you are for all of us as how to be in the United States Senate, because you're here and working, which is where all of us should be. I would hope we would be voting soon. I know we're not voting. I know we're not voting because the Democrats are boycotting the meeting, and that's a shame, but I'll take the opportunity to say this. We have two nominees for the cabinet who are great individuals who deserve the up or down vote by each member of the committee. You can vote yes or you can vote no, but no voting is not good. We see what's happened to our country when we don't have somebody in place to be the Attorney General. We've seen what happens in our country when we don't have people in important places. So confirmation is an important process of our responsibility as members of the Senate. In terms of the Finance Committee, Secretary Price, proposed Secretary for HHS, is a critical appointment to me. As all the members of the committee know and the press knows, I've handled the introduction of Representative Price both to the Senate Help Committee and the Senate Finance Committee. Spent extensive time talking about the assets that he brings to the job, and I think he'll be a great Secretary of Health and Human Services. Interestingly enough, by accident this morning, I had Helen Traverners in my office talking about health care issues. She did such a great job. Sylvia Burwell has done a great job at Labor HHS. I was proud to vote for her, both Democrat appointees. And now that we have a Republican appointee, it is a shame that because of partisan politics, which I guess is the reason, that we're not allowed to have a vote on a man who has an outstanding record as a physician, an outstanding record as a member of Congress, an outstanding record as a private citizen in the United States of America, who's an outstanding family man and a great individual. Tom Price is the right man at the right time for the right job. And when people complain about us not getting to Obamacare yet, one of the reasons we're not is we don't have a Secretary of HHS. And the longer we have boycotts of meetings, the longer that's protracted, the longer it's going to be before we can get the replacement for Obamacare done. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your leadership, appreciate you giving me a chance to say something. I'm here, I'm ready to vote, and I hope the Democrats will come to the table soon and do the same thing.
Well, thank you, Senator. I'm here and I'm ready to vote, and it's astounding to me. I mean, I'm still nonplussed here that they won't even show up for a vote, knowing that they're all going to vote no. You know, do we hate people so badly in this country because we differ with them that we can't even do our jobs? I think that's pretty pathetic. And, you know, I understand that they're very upset at Donald Trump and his administration. But to cripple the administration right out of the box is certainly not the way to do things. And it's beneath the dignity of this body. It's beneath the dignity of this committee. And I'm very disappointed that at least some of them aren't here. They don't all have to be here, but we need at least one in order to proceed. Maybe we got to change the rules so that we don't need to accommodate a situation like this where people are unwilling to do their duty, unwilling to even show up, unwilling to even vote no against a candidate that, or candidates that they don't like. And I challenge them to tell me why they don't like these two candidates, far more than just the ideological differences. These are two really fine men, and they have fine reputations. And both of them are sacrificing financially and otherwise to serve their country. And it's hard for me to understand this, but we'll just keep trying to get them to do their jobs, and hopefully they'll come and do them. But this is without precedent as far as I'm concerned. And I just don't see it. I just don't understand this at all. In fact, I'm nonplussed by it. And this is one of the most disappointing days in my 40 years in the United States Senate. And it's not just happening in this committee, it's happening elsewhere as well. So at least the Judiciary Committee, they hate the fact that Jeff Sessions is going to be Attorney General of the United States, but at least they showed up. I was there, and I'm going to go back, I guess. At least they showed up, and they're going to give their statements, and I'll respect them for that. And they're all going to vote no against a colleague, and they're going to vote no against a colleague from the House in this committee. But at least they ought to vote. And all I can say is that I've about had it. I'm not going to keep this going. Right?
I think
Well, let me just say that I fully intend this vote to occur. I think my colleagues, once they really think it through, may very well say, yeah, that was stupid of us, because it really is stupid, amazingly stupid. But I hope they'll get their heads on right, and we will continue with this, and we will call another markup at my convenience, and hopefully the convenience of everybody on the committee.
Senator Roberts is here.
What?
Senator Roberts is here. Senator Roberts.
Oh, okay. I understand Senator Roberts is here. He'd like to say a few words.
Mr. Chairman, even though I obviously have a cold, I want you to know that I am reporting for duty and ready to vote. I note with interest that all we see is empty chairs over there. I certainly wish that we could, it says right here, we have an agenda for a business meeting. And I guess our friends across the aisle are more interested in holding a press conference and just simply being obstructionist. I hope that changes. Sooner or later, we're going to have to get this done, and I guess it is what it is. But I think it's most unfortunate and does not represent what we expect with regards to this committee under your chairmanship, and for that matter, when the minority was in the majority. I don't know, I can't remember a time that I've been on this committee where people just didn't show up. So it is with deep regret that I find this circumstance, and we'll just have to do some convincing, maybe a little arm twisting, see if we can't get our colleagues to get back and let's get this business done. I think the people of our great nation expect us to do our work. That was probably one of the biggest things that I know I heard for several elections back, that we just didn't get anything accomplished. And we are ready to do business to get things accomplished, or to have these people nominated and take charge of their various duties, whether it be Tom Price or Steven Mnuchin, or anybody else in the Help Committee. I suppose this is going on at the same time, too. I find it very regrettable. You know, there is I've always thought of it as a blanket of comedy that surrounds us all in the Senate, and you don't want to lose that. And I think there's a lot of string pulling going on right now that could really harm the relationship between both of our parties. This doesn't really do any good except to pull on those strings. And then it affects everything else. So I'm extremely sorry that they have chosen not to be here. I'm ready to vote. I wish they were.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Senator.
sir.
Thank you. Senator Thune, you've just arrived.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard a number of my colleagues, yourself included, Mr. Chairman, talk about the failure of our colleagues on the other side to carry out their constitutional responsibility, and that's really what this is. We have a job to do here. We need to discharge our these nominees and get them out to the report them out to the floor where they can be considered. There will be time, obviously, to debate their qualifications at that time, but the very fact that members on the Democrat side of this committee have opted not to show up at all, I think suggests that they are not taking the responsibility that we have as senators seriously and carrying out those duties that the American people entrust us to carry out. So, and I would say, as has already been pointed out, many of us come to this committee during different administrations. I've been here now through multiple administrations, both Republican and Democrat, where there have been nominees that have come in front of this committee that I haven't agreed with on much of anything. But I also understand that the government has to function. And the departments of Treasury and the Department of Health and Human Services are critical to this country's, this government's ability to function. The Treasury Department obviously has a tremendous role to play in our economy. The Department of Health and Human Services, especially as the discussion that we're having about how to better serve the American people when it comes to health care coverage, that Secretary, Mr. Price, is going to play a very important and prominent role in leading that conversation and hopefully getting us to a solution. And so the fact that these two people are bottled up and are being held here is really disgraceful. And it is, as the chairman's pointed out, you've been here longer than some of the others, and Senator from Kansas has been here, and Senator from Georgia and I came here about the same time. So we've had our share. We've seen a number of nominees come through here, but in your experience, to hear you talk about the way in which the Democrats are conducting themselves with respect to these two nominees is I think, very telling about the level to which the dialogue here has sunk. So I hope they'll come to their senses and realize that even if they disagree with them, even if they want to vote against them, and that's their prerogative, as has been pointed out multiple times here, they'll get that opportunity to weigh in. They've had that chance. There's been plenty of due process here at this committee. I've attended the confirmation hearings that have been held for both of these nominees, and they've gone on many hours, and members on both sides have had opportunities to ask questions in multiple rounds. It wasn't like there was any attempt, Mr. Chairman. You've always run this committee in a very even-handed and fair manner. Members on both sides had an opportunity not only to ask questions here at the hearing, but also subsequently for the record. And those those questions and responses are available for members to look at and inspect as well. So this is just purely obstructionism and delay, nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. And it's unfortunate for this committee, but more importantly for the people of this country, who I think have a reasonable expectation that whether or not they agree with the current administration, that administration ought to be able to have members of their team in place to conduct the important business that happens on a daily basis here in the nation's capital. So I hope that that will change and that we'll have the opportunity to at least report these nominees out and consider them on the floor of the Senate, where they can get that up and down vote, and where members on both sides will have an opportunity to register their support or their opposition. But simply obstructing this process from even proceeding is a level of obstructionism that I've not seen in my time here, and certainly doesn't sound like the chairman has in his time here either. So I hope that changes, and that we'll get on and about the important business that the American people sent us here to conduct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. This is extremely disappointing to me. I have to say, I fully intended, and I always have, to treat our colleagues on the other side who differ with us, or even colleagues on our own side who differ, with great respect and dignity, so that they have every opportunity to express themselves. But, you know, to not even come and express themselves, I mean, it's a dereliction of duty. And especially since we've given them plenty of notice, and we've worked very closely with them. They indicated they would come, and all of a sudden we have this. I don't get it personally. I mean, I just plain don't get it. Like I say, it's a dereliction of duty. Now we'll keep the record open. We will recess until at the will of the chairman, and come back as soon as we can get our colleagues to come and vote one way or the other. And they have every right to express themselves through